After being in production for like 8 years, the FNAF movie had pretty high expectations. People have been waiting for this movie since they were little kids watching Markiplier on mom's phone, so obviously they were excited. Every shot of the trailers were hyper-analyzed, finding every possible detail. From the trailers, most fans expected this to be a scary real-life adaptation of the games. It looked like Blumhouse was going all out with things like the Torture Freddy head to make this a horrifying movie. But even before the movie release, the fans were being very critical. Everyone in the community was freaking out over the animatronics having red eyes instead of the black with white pupils from the games. This got so much backlash that some fans started to speculate they would change it, like how they changed Sonic's design in the movie.
Meow.
Everyone in the community decided the red eyes were the worst thing they'd ever seen. After the complaints, Blumhouse didn't go back and change anything, which was kind of a worrying sign. Once release day finally came, people rushed into the theaters to see it.
Why?
I always come back.
The film was an absolute smash hit, making like a gazillion Faz coins in the box office. But when the reviews started to come in, they weren't so good. While some fans argued that the movie was great, most people agreed the movie had many flaws that made it a bad movie. Today we'll be talking about some of those flaws and how I think the second movie could improve from the first. The biggest issue that you'll see all over the internet is that the movie just isn't scary. When the trailers were coming out, we were expecting the movie to have some really scary elements despite the PG-13 rating. And what we got was a cupcake flying around eating people. A scene that fans like to point out when talking about how not scary the movie is the fast forward scene. I really wish this scene never happened. This eliminated absolutely all the fear and mystery surrounding the animatronics. They're literally just little kids that like to make pillow forts. It confuses me why these little kids killed a bunch of people though. The friendly tone of the movie really bothered some fans who loved the franchise because of the horror. In my opinion, the original games never really leaned into horror as much as everyone likes to make it seem. A lot of people seem to get the actual games mixed up with the fan VHS tapes and animations. In the games, there's little to no blood or violence, and there's actually a lot of jokes. Most of the horror comes from the suspense of being trapped in the pizzeria with the Faz gang, which goes back to the movie. It never really felt like Mike was trapped or in any danger. He left and chose to come back every night with very little difficulty. He spent more time hanging with Freddy than actually being hunted by him. In the first night, he literally slept the entire time, which is just crazy. I think the next movie needs to be more focused on the horror and suspense, as it's a very important part of the franchise. Even though the original animatronics have been turned into friendly kids, they could still do whatever they want for the withered animatronics. I think they should make them soulless killing machines in contrast to the FNAF 1 gang. They could do any violent kills similar to the Max Bite, where it isn't directly shown but you could still see what happened. There are many ways to work around the PG-13 rating, they just need to actually try. Another common point of complaints is how confusing the story was. To anyone who isn't a psychotic fan that knows every animatronic's toe count, the story shown in the movie was kinda confusing. They glossed over many things, like why William was even eliminating kids in the first place. They also never really explained any history of the restaurant. Many things like this show that the movie was really just written for fans who already know everything about FNAF. New people, or children's parents, who went to see the movie were often left confused. There were also a ton of plot holes, like how nobody noticed or cared that there were dead kids in the animatronics, and why William Afton went to some random park in a different state to kill Mike's brother. Speaking of William Afton, his role in the movie was also a point of complaint for many fans. He was only mentioned in like 2 sentences before randomly walking into the pizzeria to kill Mike. Then there was the 5-minute final battle before the lamest springlock scene ever. He literally looked like he was enjoying getting torn apart. Many fans, including myself, wish he had a bigger role in the movie. Besides the 8-bit intro and a few mentions from Vanessa, he really comes out of nowhere. It could have been so cool having him lurk around the pizzeria throughout the movie, and being the main antagonist instead of Abby's aunt. Talking about Aunt Jane, I just want to say she makes no sense. She wears fancy and nice clothes and has enough money to buy a crew of spies, but she wants Abby for child support money. It makes no sense. Back to William, I think the sequel will improve on a small part in the first movie, with him taking the role of Springtrap, and hopefully the main antagonist. I actually really enjoyed Matthew Lillard as Afton, so I hope they go this direction. Real quick, if you're liking the video, springlock that subscribe button, I'd really appreciate it. One of the things that sealed this as a bad movie in many critics' minds is the bad writing. I'm not gonna try and defend the movie here, there's a ton of bad writing. A lot of it reminds me of the Silver Eyes trilogy with corny, unhuman dialogue. The writing being bad in the books is understandable since it was written for fans by like 2 people, but there's literally no excuses for this giant movie. There's no way people at the studio heard this and decided it sounded good. good.
You can do whatever you want with your own life, but if you ever bring Abby back here again, I will shoot you.
I think this is the easiest issue to fix for the next movie, and since they have way more time of pre-production, I'm really hoping it's better. Even with all these complaints, honestly, I'm gonna be a dumb FNAF fan and say I really enjoyed the movie. It felt like a lot of passion was put into it, and I loved watching it. Even though they made a lot of decisions that I'm not a huge fan of, it's still very fun to watch and enjoy. So even if every critic on Earth says the movie sucks, you can still enjoy it, because believe it or not, you're entitled to your own opinion. Oh wait, I just remembered Balloon Boy's in it. Don't watch this movie.